Hello, welcome back to another A-Level History GCSE help video. This is how to do an A-Level Y100 series question, although I will more specifically be looking at the Y106, the early Tudors. This was by Nicholas Fellows. I would also recommend that you again get this book, How to Achieve an A in A-Level History, before you start this video. So, how to do the 30 marker. Already on the 20 marker, you can find that on my playlist section, my history playlist section, on my YouTube channel, or simply just search how to answer 20 mark of a Tudor, early Tudors, Tom's on, and you'll find it. So let's get straight into the video. So, 30 markers, the Y106 unit. Personally, I think the Y100 unit's 30 marker is, in my opinion, the hardest of any of the A-level questions, minus the coursework. It's typically the one students struggle on, not because they necessarily don't know the knowledge, but they don't know at all how to structure it, and you've got four seemingly big dominant sources you've got to try and explain and evaluate. It seems you have not got enough time to do it in the 1 hour and 30 they give you to do those 80 marks, the 30 mark and the 20 marker. Never fear, I'm here again to help you out. So, again, similar to the last video, significance, evaluation, coherency, still remains true for this one. Make sure you're only writing about things that are significant, relatable to the question. Evaluation, constantly going back, or challenging this, challenging that, or one hand there's this, but on the other hand you could argue that. And coherency, a sustained line of argument. That is, if you're not coherent, have a sustained line of argument and you don't evaluate, again, if a 30 marker, you limit yourself to about 17 or 18 marks. And obviously we want to get those full 30 marks, don't we? So make sure you do that. Structure, intro, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and conclusion. If you really want to, you could do 4 paragraphs, one on each source, but I will not, as you'll see in a minute. I would recommend not doing that. And then how do you do it? Well, you got your point / main line of argument. Then you quote the source, although you don't have to quote the source, but generally refer to the source directly. Explaining / using own knowledge. Evaluation, talking about provenance. It's the only question I have to do this in your entire A-level. Might, of course, refer to the provenance. And then just conclude or link back to the question. 2 little stars to put down here, the stuff you should definitely try and include in this 30 marks to really make it stand out and achieve all those marks you want possible, minus just sec. That is, combined sources. What do I mean by this? Well, hence why I said only do paragraph 1, paragraph 2. Because at the end of the day, it's a question. You either agree with it or you need to disagree with it, and you don't need to sit on the fence. So let's say you agree with the question. Okay, paragraph 1, talk about how you agree with it. Paragraph 2, how we perhaps disagree with it. Or, more specifically, how the sources are correct into relating to the question, and how the source in the second paragraph contradict the question, or vice versa, whether you disagree then agree. However, make sure you pair your sources. So what I mean by this is that A, B, C, and D. A and C, they might agree with the question. However, B and D might disagree with the question. So when you're doing in paragraph 1, talk about A and doing all these things, of course. Main line of argument, point, quote, evaluate own knowledge, evaluation, provenance, link back to the question. But then go directly on to source C. However, source C also supports the view that Mary I had an unstable reign, for instance. That's really key. If you're doing that, the examiner means you're not only representing own knowledge, good understanding of the course, and a coherent, sustained line of argument, because you're saying, I agree with the question, your intro, you've already laid that out, but also your pairing sources, which is quite a key historiography bit of knowledge historians like. You're able to make links between history, saying that both these sources are similar, both of them are different, etc. And the second, so link your sources. Paragraph 1, both use A and B, for instance, paragraph 2, B and C, or whatever. Whether the sources agree, disagree. It'll make more sense in a minute when I get onto them in the next part of the video. And again, just to reiterate with the question, exclamation marks, evaluate provenance, evaluate provenance, evaluate provenance, evaluate and provenance. You've got to do them. Please do that. If you do not refer to the source, is provenance and who's writing the source, why they're writing the source, when they're writing the source, what the motives writing the source are, and how they're writing the source. Again, you're limiting yourself to maybe 20 or 21 marks, because at the end of the day, the way the word question is worded, how far are they significant, how far are they convincing? You will only know that if you look at who wrote the source. That's key to be known. So I'll leave it on screen for a second there. That's the stuff you need to include. So have a look at a question, look at exam reports, and see exactly what we need to do. So we are then. Note or fancy. Oh, note! Anyway, so these 4 sources in historical context assess how far they support the view that there are resistance opposition to Mary I's religious policy. So straight away, let's look at the sources and look at some key words. I'll get the pencil function up. Source A. A Yorkshire priest records the reactions to people to be accusing Mary I as Queen. Queen Mary was proclaimed as the York thing. Rotham's near Sheffield. Oh, Rotham's near Sheffield, therefore in the north. So probably, they probably won't support the view. Probably. Ah. But all were such of heretical opinions, and bishops and priests having wives did nothing rejoice, but began to be ashamed of themselves. You can perhaps quote that down. That's a key bit of own knowledge the source is relating to. And again, only include stuff in the source that's relevant to the question. Don't start talking about the first sentence, because knowing what day of the week it is and it's July isn't really relevant to the question. Very few parish churches in Yorkshire. But masses were sung and said in Latin. So because sung and said in Latin, we reference to the 1554 Act of Repeals, which of course undid all of Edward VI and Henry VIII's religious work. But Edward VI you can rumble them though. So that's the first bit you can of course include. And then, so generally, does this support the view? Well, it thinks, like I said, there was not resistant opposition, because it's saying that generally people were speaking Latin again. So if we actually go back to our function, yes, it does. It does not support the view. Going on to source B, a royal messenger, cousin of a former Lord Chancellor, records an eyewitness account of an event in London in 1554. Get my pencil function back up. Okay, so we got here. The Lord Mayor offered a reward to anyone named the culprit. Inquiries were made, and several persons were imprisoned under suspicion. A dead cat was hanged on the post of the gallows, dressed in cloth like the vestment of a priest at mass, cross front and back. So therefore, this does of course support the view that there was. Just checking on that one. Yes, there was resistance opposition to Mary's first religious policies, again, because people did not like the fact that they suddenly had, go from Protestant countries to now Catholic countries so quickly in so little time. And of course you make links to the fact that under Edward VI, priests could marry and they could wear, more common clothing, or just wear their normal habits. But now they can't. A bit of a hard to define source, that one, although I must say, I think it's probably one of the harder ones. And again, former Lord Chancellor, so therefore they probably would agree that there was resistant opposition, because being a former Lord Chancellor, probably in cabinet when Edward VI was on the throne, Duke of Northumberland, or even Duke of Somerset was in power as Lord Protector, therefore they would have Protestant sympathies. Source C. A London merchant who welcomed Mary I's intention to restore Catholicism. Oh yes, burnt for his critical opinion. Make links there to who? You guessed it. 1555, burning Thomas Cranmer. The own Archbishop of Canterbury was burnt for being a heretic. Due to the 1553 heresy laws she reintroduced. Own knowledge, evaluation, you can bring it in there. And again, more. Master Hooper, Gloucestershire, Sanders to Coventry, both to be burnt. So therefore, of course, yes, there was challenging to the views. Straight away, sources B and C can link. They are arguing that there definitely was a challenge to Mary I's opposition resistance to Mary I's religious policies. And finally, when we go on to source D, the officials of parish churches in Canterbury diocese, a centre of Protestantism. A centre of Protestantism in Canterbury, probably also going to challenge the view, in order to fit out their churches for Catholic worship. to repair the glass windows. Why? Well, you can link back there to the 1547 Chantries Act, where they were all smashed, chantries closed down. Further along, dissolution of monasteries. Not only monasteries now dissolved, but chantries were also dissolved as well. And Mary the First, again, 1554 Act repeal was undoing that. Bigger house to be repaired, and the church are to be enclosed decently. So therefore this says there is not resistance and opposition, because they want these things to return. And again, depending on where you are in the country, despite being held by Protestantism, it still illustrates that Mary I, because she was preferable over Lady Jane Grey in 1553 due to her being illegitimate and the Duke of Orleans being more and more dictatorial and autocratic by the end of his reign, they supported Mary I on the throne. Therefore there was not resistance opposition, and Jane was not amid Tudor crisis, because they wanted Mary I on the throne, the true successor. Legitimacy was more important than religion. So this is actually really, really brilliant, because sometimes it's harder to do. But as you can see here, we can now pair sources A and sources D as those that challenge the question, and sources B and C those that support the question, and we've annotated that really quite nicely. So as you can see, it's very simple to do really, a bit of a noise, a bit of annotating, and we do soon get there. I will now show you an examined report of what exactly they want. Unfortunately, not in this exact question, I couldn't find one, but on another question fairly similar to this one. So, as you can see right here, it's about, again, female rule of the theory of 1550, the general idea of stability of the monarchy, or perhaps religious changes. So, this response is focused on questions of a serious problem and reaches an overall judgment as to whether the sources support the view. Overall judgment, coherency, sustained line of argument. Evaluation, the sources are evaluated. The E in sec there, our own knowledge, is used to place them in context and evaluates the views they offer. The response is driven by the sources and their provenance. Provenance is freely considered in reaching a judgment about their reliability. Again, more evaluation there. And they receive the lower end of level 6, so we're looking around 25, 26 out of 30. And you can see, they're not writing all that much, only over a page. Okay, it's quite a small font, but even so. So you can see there, I mean, you can read most of this yourself. I will not just reiterate it out to you. You can find it for yourself. I will just scroll through it now and pick out some key points there. So, as you can see in their conclusion here, again, some students run out of time. You need to conclude. It's very important. The sources suggested there were potential problems of having a female ruler. So, they've addressed the question. Brilliant. Not simply, as source D argues, a bit of bringing in full circle the sources there, linking directly to them. That's the word I was looking for, linking directly to them. Source D argued because it was unnatural. They've acknowledged that unnatural at the time, not to mention the last time England had a female ruler in the 12th century period of anarchy, it was Matilda of Aquitaine. People did not like her. They had a civil war against King Stephen. They did not want this civil war that had in the 12th century between Stephen and Matilda to return. They'd only recently emerged from the War of the Roses. All this own knowledge can come exploding out in the exam, as long as you can control it. I sometimes can't, because of who they should marry and the powers that the husband would have. However, as source A suggests, there were other problems, such as legitimacy, which was also a concern, and probably more so, as it allowed Lady Jane to be named as possible heir. The support there was from many of Elizabeth also suggests that source D accelerates concerns about female rulers, so they're tying up each source very nicely. And again, let's look at some more keywords they're using here, guys. However, although they're using those key evaluative words, source A and B are less convincing, trying to keep a consistent, coherent line of argument, because like I said in their introduction, sources D and C suggest that female rule could be a serious problem. Hence why I try and say A and B are less convincing, because they want to stay true to their main line of argument there, that sources C and D, that they were a serious problem, whereas sources A and B do not consider it a serious problem, with source A more concerned about the question of legitimacy, while source B does not see female rule as a problem because, according to Mary Tudor, her subject promised to obey her at her coronation. So clearly, all the ingredients are there, guys. They've got the sec, they've got the structure, they've got multiple paragraphs, and you can do how many you want. They did end up doing 1, 2, 3. They ended up doing 3, weirdly, and then to interim and conclusion. So there you go, everyone. The structure, some sources, and examined reports, and everything you need to try and achieve that A star in your Y106 30 marker and get as many marks as possible. Any questions, please let them down in the comment section below. Anything you want me to explain anymore, just ask me, I'll respond to your comment. And yeah, 30 marker Tudors. Stay tuned, I am doing one on the Y300 series, how to do their 30 mark on their interpretations. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you're ready to watch that. Thanks for watching.